shooting, slicing, stabbing, bludgeoning. This is the recipe that any good zombie game uses. And with its amazing new visuals, iconic gameplay, and radically violent dismemberment and gore, Dead Island 2 looks to be using this recipe pretty well. But it's been over 12 years since the first Dead Island was released, and it's been over 10 years since Dead Island 2 went into development. I mean, this game was originally supposed to come out 8 years ago, so alarm bells should probably be ringing. But the developers behind this game surprised the gaming community with its first gameplay trailer last year. It actually looks really damn good. And then this year they released 13 minutes of raw gameplay, and again, it just looks great. So the question is, should we be excited? Is this game going to be worth the hype? As a general rule, my answer to questions like this is usually no, but I can't help but feel a little bit of enthusiasm for this release. What's going on, brothers and sisters? GL Jake is back with another video. I'm here today to talk to you guys a little bit about Dead Island 2, which is a game that is actually shaping up to look pretty good. So I just wanted to take a look at it and figure it out. Like, should we be excited? Is this game gonna suck huge balls? Don't really know, but we're gonna jump in and figure it out right now. So Dead Island 2 takes place in California this time around, and I'm actually really excited about this. I always love it when games take a crack at replicating real-world locations, especially when they're dealing with an alternate timeline like a zombie outbreak. The story itself, obviously, is still under wraps, but what we know so far is that the US military has got the whole state of California under quarantine due to the zombie outbreak. And we're gonna find ourselves running around Los Angeles, making this the first Dead Island game that doesn't actually take place on an island. And I'm really expecting a way different vibe in the second installment than what we had in the first. The first Dead Island game is like really depressing. It's bleak, helpless. It's a game that tackles the apocalypse from an almost realistic standpoint. It takes the time to like explore the way that a zombie outbreak might impact people mentally and emotionally, and it doesn't really vibe with me. Like, as an example, at one point you come across a guy standing in a pool full of blood, having just murdered his whole family who was infected. It's just really dark and depressing. And in very stark contrast to this, Dead Island 2 is shaping up to be a game that doesn't take itself seriously almost at all. It has this really light-hearted, humorous vibe. Take for an example the reveal trailer for this game. To me, it's just an absolute masterpiece. It follows this guy, and he's just absolutely vibing in the apocalypse. It is awesome. How often do you feel envious of a protagonist that is living in an apocalypse? But here, this guy is just living large. He's loving life. It all starts with this guy just hitting the bottle first thing in the morning, then he heads outside and bashes a zombie skull in with it. And my guy just lights up a dart, puffs a chooch, and starts going to town. And fittingly, this trailer is an absolute gore fest. He's just out running errands, going to the grocery store, but he's killing zombies all the way there and all the way back. He finally gets home eventually, but then he realizes he forgot to get batteries for his TV remote, so he grabs a sword and just heads out the door. He walks past his neighbors, gives them the nice, the neighborly wave. How you doing, Jim? No. His neighbors are killing zombies. It's just hilarious. I love it. And the touch that the survivors have taken over, like a neighborhood of mansions in Beverly Hills, is just, it's the cherry on top. Because why the fuck wouldn't they take over these mansions? I would take over a mansion if these people are dead. I kill them and take their mansion. They're zombies. Who cares? The whole vibe is just awesome, honestly. And it's just because I have such a hard time taking a game seriously while I'm in the process of violently dismembering people. As I've been playing through the OG Dead Island, I just felt like it was taking itself way too seriously, like I mentioned before. At times, it just felt like it was trying to make me feel sad. The vibes were just off. So I'm really glad that the team behind Dead Island 2 has decided to take this type of approach, because if we're being honest with ourselves, we're not really here for the story, are we? That's not what Dead Island is really about. The game is about killing zombies in the most violent ways possible. It's about blood, guts, and gore. And this trailer is evidence that Dambuster, the studio that's behind the game, fully understands that. So let's talk a little bit more about that gore and how it impacts the gameplay. It looks awesome, as you've seen. It might even be the best gore that we've ever seen in a video game. They call it the flesh system. And basically what it means is that each hit on a zombie can actually rip off and impact that specific part of their flesh. It's completely dynamic according to the developers. It's kind of hard for me to believe that this system works as well as they claim, but from the footage that I've seen, it really does look very impressive. At a press conference, Dead Island 2's developers described it like this. In the game, anatomically correct layers of fat, skin, and muscle can be ripped away with machete point accuracy to reveal breakable bones and internal organs that are individually destructible. I think it's safe to say that no matter what happens, this game is going to be absolutely morbid. Like I said, I'm not really sure if this level of detail has ever been achieved before by a gore system in a video game. I think the closest we've seen recently is the newest Resident Evil remakes. But I'm really impressed with what we've seen so far, and I really can't wait to start testing out this system for myself. And adding to the gore effect, the game also sounds great. The way that each hit on a zombie gives this real sense of impact is really remarkable. The difference in sound between hitting a zombie over the head with a hammer and slicing their legs off with a sword is done very well. Even the guns seem to sound excellent, and I don't really expect that gunplay will play a huge role in Dead Island 2 if it's anything like the first game. This is important for the gameplay, but also for your immersion. When you gouge a hole in a zombie's head with a hammer, it's like you can hear the hammer breaking through their skull and flesh in real time. I think some people might actually find these systems to be too visceral. I can see some people being turned off by playing this game because of how much blood and guts you're gonna have to deal with. I personally will not be one of those people. So like I mentioned earlier, Dead Island takes place in California, specifically Los Angeles, or as the developers are referring to it, Hell A. And like I said, I'm very excited to get into these locations and start playing. So far, the world looks incredible. Based on what I've seen, this may turn out to be one of the best recreations of a real-life setting we've seen in quite some time in a video game. The level of detail we've seen so far in the trailers and gameplay and the previews has just been absolutely outstanding. Everything is just so bright and colorful. You'll find yourself digging through mega mansions in Beverly Hills and movie sets in Burbank, all loaded with zombies to kill. I think everything just looks very incredible so far, and I'm super excited to get my hands on this game and start exploring this place. The first thing I wanted to tackle about the gameplay is the fact that this game technically isn't a true open world game. Los Angeles in Dead Island 2 is going to be divided into districts that are separated by loading screens. Like you might feel, my initial reaction to this was disappointment, but after giving it some thought, I decided that I'm actually okay with this. Sure, I'd rather have a massive open world to explore seamlessly, but more important than that is that the game is filled with intricate details and cool places to explore and things to see. I would rather the game have great locations to visit that are separated by loading screens than a world that is barren and empty for the sake of loading the entire map seamlessly and without performance issues. Of course, having the best of both worlds would be preferable, but I sense that the team at Dambuster had to pick between the two, and I say they definitely made the right choice. Still, I hope they're able to replicate the feeling I found while I've been playing through Dead Island 1, where you're always stumbling across different things to do. You meet a lot of interesting characters playing through the first game, and I just really hope that Dead Island 2 still puts an emphasis on world building and giving you interesting characters to meet and side quests and all sorts of different stuff, because I really enjoyed that part of the first Dead Island game. Similar to the first game, you'll get to experiment with a really cool weapon customization system. They've only shown us a little bit of this, but from what I've seen so far, it looks really impressive. There will be dozens of different weapons available in this game. Of course, for the most part, there'll be melee weapons. There are a few firearms you can get your hands on, but my guess is that those will only be accessible later in the game, and the star of the show is going to be the way that you can customize the melee weapons. It looks awesome. You can grab a pair of Wolverine claws and slap some kind of electrical crap on them and run around ripping zombies apart while frying them with electricity. You can rig up an axe with some type of blowtorch thing and you just burn zombies as you butcher them with this axe. There's so much more than that, and it all looks incredibly fun. And I hope that this means that the combat won't get stale. A very common complaint about the original Dead Island was that the combat just got boring and repetitive over time. I've been playing through the original Dead Island game myself, and I do find the combat to be a little monotonous, so I would be inclined to agree with most people there. Weapons generally feel pretty samey in the first game. I didn't really feel the difference between cutting a zombie's arm off with a meat cleaver or doing it with a baseball bat that has a rotating saw attached to it. Bashing a head in with a hammer or doing the same thing with a boat paddle feels pretty much the same too. The first Dead Island did include some weapon customization, but the second game looks far more in depth. So if I had to guess, I'd say that I really think the creativity that players are going to be given here is going to make this game feel super fun for a long time. All of this stuff combined with the excellent gore system and the awesome, impactful sound design should hopefully mean that Dead Island 2's combat won't suffer from the same issues as its predecessor. Anything can happen though, so I will be paying close attention to how I feel about this aspect of the game as I play through it in a week or so. And if you're interested in what I think about it after I play it, I'm going to be getting a review up on this game stat after it comes out. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the playable characters you're going to have access to in Dead Island 2. We know that there's going to be 6 of them, and a little bit about what each one is going to be like when you're playing as them. We know that each character has innate skills, which are basically like character-specific perks and abilities. I'll go through all the details that we know about each character here, so if that kind of thing bores you, you can skip to the next chapter of the video. I will leave a link below to deadisland.com where you can read all of this info instead. So first up, you have Amy, who you might want to choose if you like a fast-paced style of gameplay. Her first innate skill is called Relief Pitcher, which gives a stamina boost if you hit a zombie with a thrown weapon. Second is Divide and Conquer, which boosts damage if you attack a zombie that's isolated from the rest. The next character we have is Bruno, which might suit you if you like a thoughtful approach to each situation. His innate skills include Backstab, which give him a damage boost when he attacks a zombie from behind, and Rapid Reprisal, which gives him a boost to his agility and heavy attack charges when he avoids attacks. Next is Danny, which appears to be a great option for someone who just wants to play fast and kill lots of zombies. For those reasons, I think that's who I'm going to end up playing. Her innate skills include Bloodlust, which gives health when killing multiple zombies in quick succession, and Thunderstruck, which makes her heavy attacks create this explosion. Moving forward, we have Jacob, and his innate skills include Feral, which gives him this stackable damage boost when attacking enemies back to back. Also, he has Critical Gains, which boosts the damage of his crits while he has low stamina, and landing crits will regain stamina for him. Next up is Ryan. His innate skills are Retaliation, which gives him a force boost when avoiding enemies with a block or a dodge, and Seesaw, which gives him a health boost every time he knocks down a zombie. Last but not least is Carla, who is basically like the tank character of the game. She's the one who you'd want to play if you just want to mindlessly charge in and attack them and hopefully not die. Her innate skills are Mosh Pit, which gives her a damage boost when she's near a group of zombies, and Dig Deep, which gives her a toughness boost when she has low health. And I really appreciate that this game is taking this type of approach to its characters. The first Dead Island game had a similar system, but this one seems a lot more interesting and thought out. I expect that this will really appeal to longtime fans of this franchise or anyone else who expects to get a lot of replayability out of this game. Outside of each character's innate skills, you'll also be able to find cards during your playthrough. These cards function like additional perks and are designed to be hot swappable. The idea is that you can change out your skills based on whatever situation you're approaching to best suit the challenge. This kind of sounds like it'll be tedious to me, but I guess we'll see how it goes when the game launches. The game also has multiplayer support, so I'm interested to see how these characters interact with one another in that type of environment. So like I mentioned at the onset of this video, Dead Island 2 has been subject to serious delays and development issues. At the beginning of development, The expectation was that Techland, the company behind the first Dead Island game, would be the people to develop this one. But Techland ended up making Dying Light instead. So at the start, a studio named Jaeger Development stepped in and worked on the game. They developed a build of the game that was shown at E3 2014, almost 9 years ago. But the next summer in 2015, Jaeger was essentially fired by publisher Deep Silver, and development seemed to stop for a time. In 2016, Sumo Digital took over development, and not much was said about the game for around 3 years. But it was eventually revealed in 2019 that development of the game had finally moved to Dambuster Studios, who are the people that are developing the release of the game that we're looking at now. The only other thing that Dambuster is really known for is making Homefront: The Revolution, which is a little bit concerning to say the least. If you're unaware, Homefront was this cool game that came out when there was all those COD clones coming out, like I guess it would have been around 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And that game was actually pretty good. I really liked that game. A lot of people did. It was pretty popular for a minute. But Homefront: The Revolution, which was kind of like the sequel, a little bit of a reboot type of thing, that game sucked. Everybody hated that game. So I am a little bit concerned about this company's credentials, but I don't know. That game kind of looked like trash all the way from the beginning, and Dead Island 2 looks really good. So I'm hoping that that isn't what's going to happen here. I have a few reasons to believe that this won't be the case with Dead Island 2. First up, Deep Silver and Dambuster have shown us a lot of gameplay. They've released multiple gameplay videos showing us exactly how the game looks, exactly how it plays. I understand that this doesn't mean a ton, given that they can just pick and choose what they want to show us, but it's still a lot more information than we usually get about any game before it releases. Going even farther than that, they opened up the game to players at PAX East recently and actually let attendees play the game openly themselves. And from the reviews and statements that I've watched from people who actually played the game, they said it was really good and that the performance was actually outstanding. Again, I know that that doesn't mean a huge amount because, again, like the build that they're going to use could be, specifically optimized for whatever these people were playing. And obviously they were using like a 4090. But I just think that, this level of transparency is a good sign. It shows us that Dambuster and Deep Silver understand that they need to earn trust in this industry, given the rockiness this game has gone through during its development cycle. One other thing that I wanted to discuss a bit here was just the way that game delays work. Like you, I'm always disappointed when a game that I'm excited about gets delayed. I try my hardest never to get excited for video games if I can, but in some cases I just can't help it. So when I'm told that I need to wait, it can definitely be frustrating. But recently I've come to appreciate game delays, and I think as consumers we need to start accepting and in some cases encouraging this practice. There are a couple reasons for this. Most importantly, it just bottom line means that the product is going to be better. They're going to have more time to work on it. Therefore, it'll be better, almost certainly. As an example, Jedi Survivor was delayed for around 6 weeks until the end of April. And for me, this was frustrating because, like so many people, I'm very excited to play that game. I'm going to have a review coming out, by the way. Subscribe for more. But I want my experience with that game to be as close to flawless as it possibly can be. So I'm glad that they delayed it, because had they released it in a broken, buggy state, it could ruin the experience for me and everyone else, and ruin the legacy that that game and that series have, for Respawn and for EA. And I just really am glad that Dead Island 2 has taken the same approach, because I'd like to see a Dead Island 3 and a Dead Island 4, and I'd like to see this series come back, because I think it's a cool idea. But if this game came out and it was broken, that's it. They're done. So I just think it's important for us to be okay with that happening. Just try to remember that a game delay often means better working conditions for the people that are making it, which is great for them, but it also means that they'll make a better final product for us to play. So normalize delaying video games, because it will always be worth the wait. So I guess finally the question is, should we be excited for Dead Island 2? It certainly looks fun. The graphics are incredible, the gore is immaculate, it looks like dumb, morbid, and amazing fun. But every single one of us has been let down more than once by a game that checked all of those boxes before.
All of this just works.
So my recommendation is to be cautiously optimistic if you can help it. The game releases April 21st. It comes in 3 editions digitally, standard for $59.99, deluxe for $64.99, and gold for $79.99. Standard stuff, anything you'd expect, you know, expansion packs, passes, bonus content. Everything that everybody hates is in these packages, basically. So there's nothing really to write home about there. But if you're a collector or you want a physical copy, they are offering a collector's edition for, I think it's $99.99. And it comes with like a map and a steel book and some other cool stuff. I will be buying the standard edition, but I really appreciate that games are still making these cool physical collector's edition releases, even in the time where everything, you know, GameStop out the door. Nobody's going to buy games anymore, but developers are still making this kind of thing happen, and I'm really happy about that. So yeah, Dead Island 2 looks very promising. I will be playing it day one. If you want my opinion on it after it releases, hit subscribe, because I will be getting a full review up for it as soon as I can. So yeah, I guess do as I say, not as I do, because I admittedly am excited for Dead Island 2. I really try to keep expectations low when video games are coming out, but from everything we've seen, I can't help but feel like this will actually end up being a really enjoyable video game. I don't think it's going to be perfect or a masterpiece or anything like that, but my confidence is very high that I'm going to have a stupid amount of fun cutting the undead limb from limb in Hell A later this month.
Real simple. Give me a drink. Give me a drink.